Thank you, Phoebe. Thanks for supporting the
Yeah, it'd be easy for you to move it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, they're all back. Can we go and get the try of sausage roll?
Kia ora koutou, everyone. Welcome to our regional extraordinary council meeting for our annual plan deliberations for 2022. Excuse me. We won't need to go through housekeeping. We've had a karakia this morning. There are no apologies. No one's, all the councillors are still there. We've got a hybrid today with some councillors online. Conflicts of interest or declarations of conflicts of interest we'll take as we go, and we'll move to our first item. No, we won't. We'll have a presentation first. Sorry, ladies. I've been told twice and I still forgot. Welcome, Kyla.
Thank you, everyone. This is just a really brief recap of the process so far, just before we go into the consideration of proposals in the campaign. There shouldn't be anything in here that you don't already have in front of you, but thank you. There shouldn't be anything in this presentation that you don't already have in front of you. It's just calling out those main points. So there were two main points of consultation. One was the Waipiri replacement. So obviously there's been an increase in construction costs. There was money set aside in the LTP, but there was an additional 1.7 million required. There was a bit of a rejig done to the way that the proposal was going to be funded to make it more efficient. And that was borrowing down the full amount to be paying over 15 years. So that 1.6 million would be set aside into the long-term fund. That was the money already set aside and budgeted in the long-term plan. And this was a region-wide rate increase of around 80 cents per rating unit or so. But that rate increase won't begin until 23-24, so not in this annual plan year that we are budgeting for, but really important to note going forward. The second main point of consultation was the whangarei transport rate. There has been a substantial increase in running costs, so there was a $377,000 fund shortfall. That was due to numerous reasons, including increased running costs, still not as many people on the buses, and government legislation around minimum wage. This is to be addressed with savings and rates. There was some money that could be saved from funds set aside for increased services that were associated with the T2 lanes. Those lanes have been delayed. They're a district council responsibility, and there was an issue with some of the funding around that. So approximately half of that money was available to go into this fund to fund the buses and keep those running as we planned. There was also an increase to the targeted rate, just the whangarei district area for this. It's the whangarei targeted rate. Proposed increase of around $4.83 per soup, around 9 cents a week. Consultation approach was pretty straightforward. Nothing too different from what we normally do. Did a consultation document under Section 82 of the Local Government Act, media release, social media platforms. We received submissions via online, hard copy and email. We had a talk to the councillor day, which we had to run online because of COVID restrictions. We had our consultation period for a month. And I just wanted to make a note here that the small number of submissions that we received is not unique to us. It's something that all councils across New Zealand have experienced with their annual plan this year. There's just a lot going on in people's worlds right now. So we received a total of 13 written submissions, 1 oral submission at Councillor Day. These were split across our proposals. So for Waipiri, we received 6. For in support, 2 against. No submissions were made on the intricacies of the funding model. Whangarei transport rate, there were 6, 1 support, 4 no objection, and 1 was irrelevant. For our user fees and charges, we received 6, 3 in general support, 1 with an amendment proposed that has been taken into consideration. 2 were related to topics not relevant to regional council or were uninformed. and one related to maritime or biosecurity fees, which are not proposed to change as part of this process today. There were 7 that were out of scope, and these are topics that relate to district council matters. There were some on GMOs and fencing and fire bans, and where appropriate, we have passed these submissions on to either the internal staff members that can help out or onto our district council counterparts. Our staff recommendations today, as set out in your report, are to proceed as proposed for the Waikato replacement and the Whangarei transport rate, to make no changes as a result of those other submissions that were considered to be out of scope, and for the user fees and charges to proceed as proposed, but with the addition of removing a note under some of the tables in there that related to the number of staff attending a site visit, and that was in direct response to one of those submissions that was received. Next steps are pretty straightforward. So we've made formal recommendations on page 1 of both of the reports that you have. Once you have made your deliberations today, we will go and make the final plan in accordance with those. And the annual plan and user fees and charges are set to be adopted on the 28th of June. So we can set our rates for the following year and our activities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. And Robin and to the team for all the work on this. Very much appreciated. Well-run process, and hopefully we'll get some more submissions next year, all in favour of what we're proposing. Okay, so we'll move to item 5.1, which is the council deliberations on the annual plan, and there's a number of recommendations which I will take separately. So the first one is that we receive the report. Could I have a mover and seconder, please? Thank you, Marty. Seconded, Colin. Thank you. I'm assuming there's no comment, there aren't any comments on this one. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation 1. So recommendation 2, that council support the provision of an additional 1.7 million towards design and build of a maritime vessel to replace the current vessel for a total cost of 3.3 million as proposed in the annual plan 22-23 supporting information. Mover Rick, thank you. Seconder Jack, thank you. Is there any discussion on this one? That's an unfortunate price increase, but a pragmatic way forward. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Carried. Recommendation 3, that council support borrowing the full amount of 3.3 million required to design and build a maritime vessel that will replace the current vessel and repay it over 15 years by the council services rate beginning in 23-24 as proposed in the annual plan 22-23 supporting information. Mover and seconder, please. Thank you, Rick. Seconded, Terry. Thank you. Any comments, questions?
Yeah, Chair, maybe I should just comment on that one. Chair, this recommendation is based on the interest rates as they are today. Given that interest rates are changing quite rapidly at the moment, one can envisage a possibility that it may well mean that this decision needs to be revisited when it's implemented, as it may be more beneficial for council to fund it from internal resources rather than borrow. But I'd still recommend to council that you resolve this decision based on the information we have today, but just note that there may be a need to revisit this decision before the funding is actually needed.
Thank you, Malcolm. So if everyone's happy, we'll make a note of that. Yes, Marty?
Well, just a question of the 15 years, is that just to reflect the depreciation to zero value? Or?
No, 15 years is the potential maximum borrowing period that's available from the LGFA at the moment. And it does depend on the funding cycles within the LGFA. So sometimes that may well drop down to 12 years if they're not offering 15-year loans at that point. But again, the life of the vessel should be between sort of 15 and 20 years. I mean, our current vessel is 20 years, so in theory, you'd match the depreciation and the borrowing to the life of the vessel.
Yeah.
But at the moment, that's not available, that slightly longer period of the life. It's not available in the market. So it is dependent on what funding is available in the market at the point that you want.
Thank you, Malcolm. Stuart?
Oh, thank you, Chair, Madam Chair. Excuse me, Malcolm. Just a back of the envelope. What is the current rate assumption that is being used with regard to the annual plan deliberations?
4%. 4%.
Sorry.
4%.
4%. Right. Okay. And I just wondered if it would be helpful, maybe as a direction of travel for council, that is there anything that would suggest how the numbers might change for every 1% change to that rate? Is there a sort of a stress variance that just can give council a bit of a mental heads up in terms of just how how impacting that might be a 1% change in that rate?
Yeah, Chair, I'm not sure whether the team whether you did some scenarios.
We did remodel based on the current rate the other day, which is 4.88, and it makes about a 30k difference to the rates. But given we're not rating in the current year, we thought it prudent to just remodel for the next annual plan. The rate kicks in to make sure we've got it as more accurate picture.
So the 30k, what did that represent in terms of interest movement?
0.88.
0.88, so it's currently at 4%, and the current 15-year borrowing is at 4.8. So we place that.
So I can't hear anything.
So 0.88, which was Casey used to model, because that's what it used to be.
Current day, so when we looked at it last week, the current LGFA borrowing is 4.88.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was, I was thinking of a back of the envelope figure at the moment of 5%, which is why I sort of was interested to know what a 1% shift would be. So that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Colin. Anything further? All those in favour of recommendation 3? Aye.
Right.
Against? Carried. Okay, we'll move on to number 4, which is that council support the 1.6 million set aside for the design and build of the maritime vessel to be placed in council's long-term fund as proposed in the annual plan 22-23 supporting information. Mover and seconder, please. Moved Amy, seconded Joss, thank you. Any discussion on that one?
Is that just for clarity's sake that it's now going to be total standalone 3.3 borrowed for the boat, so it's not muddying the waters with 1.6 rather than having 1.6 was allocated for it and an additional 1.7?
So again, ask the team to
Oh, just clarify, sorry.
kick in if I've got this wrong, but essentially at the moment it pays us to still invest our own funds because we're earning a slightly higher yield than what we're borrowing at, and that's why I say if that turned around, then we'd have to recheck the whole model and come back to council with a different funding proposal. Yeah.
Yes, and we may fund the whole lot rather than buy.
Yeah. So if you want to call it, there's a slight investment subsidy,
Yes.
by investing our own money, which would reduce the rate.
Hopefully there's a bigger gap than what there is now. Okay, everyone in favour of
Yep.
number 4? Aye.
Right.
Against? Carried. Number 5. Let's move on to transport now. That council supports the reallocation of CityLink funds set aside in 22-23 year for T2 lanes, which are now delayed, and an increase in the targeted whangarei transport rate of $188,216 per year for 22-23, to maintain and improve the services provided by the Whangarei City Link as proposed in the annual plan 22-23 supporting information. Move and seconded, please. Thank you, Jack. Move, Jack. Seconded. Rick, thank you. Any comments?
Just comment on promotion of the fleet is that cost of getting from A to B, as I'm from Kirikiri to here now, just for petrol, it's just going up. Really, you can sort of see the rain down in the fuel gauge sort of running down, the price per kilometre going up and up. I wonder how much promotion is going on the back of this to encourage people to get onto the fleet, onto the buses. So you're speaking fully in favour of supporting it to the hill.
Anyone speak to what the promotion is? I know that we've got. Oh, Chris, are you there? You got a microphone, Chris? You know.
Yep.
Oh, sorry for that. To the chair, good afternoon to council. Sorry, I can hardly hear that the sound's
It was
quite
just
bad.
to promote, just a promotion, Chris, for encouraging people to get onto the buses. There's sort of an aversion to it. People like to sit in their own car, even though they can all the money being burnt. But how to get them out of that onto a bus.
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. We will continue to advertise. I mean, we do advertise quite a bit for, and particularly around Whangarei, and we did a huge amount of advertising for the half fares, which, as you would have seen through the national budget, will be going on until the end of June. And thereafter they will stop that, but it will go on to green card holders. And that will operate pretty much on the same basis as the Super Gold Card system. The other conversation we've had is probably one of the biggest things that could happen to move people onto the buses is either increase the cost of parking in town or start removing parking places in town. As we've always said, when you have your central bus terminus with $2 all-day parking within 200 meters of it, that doesn't really support our cause. So we are certainly going to have quite a bit of say on the Whangarei District Council's and upcoming parking strategy to ensure we can use that to try and get people onto the buses. Okay, thank you. Thank you to the chair.
Stuart?
Through the chair, thank you. Probably to broadly cover Marty's point and I think probably others is that can management just please tell me what inflation assumptions have been used? What inflation rate assumptions have been used for the annual plan deliberations?
Through the chair, we are obliged to use a 3% increase, which is given to us by Waka Kotahi. We are probably presently running at close to 10-11% increases in fuel, wages, etc. But in our applications for subsidy assistance, we have been advised they apply 3%.
Someone online's got some background noise. Is that you, Terry? You got the radio on?
No, it's not me.
I'm sorry, through the chair, that's me. We're in an open plan office. And someone else is on a conference call.
Oh, that's
and I
all
think
right.
they're trying to use ours as well. So,
All good. Okay, thank you very much, Chris. All good, Stuart? Yeah, okay. Yes, Rick.
No, I just think also we want to encourage the T2 lanes. You know, I know they've delayed, but that hopefully would, that's one of the big factors, isn't it, Chris? That's, you know, if we could get those operating, would make a big difference, I think. And then we could follow up with our our increased services services from 30 to 15 minutes, which would make a big difference as well. So
Yep. I'm sorry, through the chair, yes, very important. Nobody's going to use the bus if they're caught up in the same traffic jam as everybody else. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, it's a bit of a shame it was delayed. Okay, so that was number 5.
Yep.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Okay, number 6, that council supports an increase in total rates revenue from the 13.79 stated in the long-term plan 21-31 to 13.89, which is 0.1% for the 22-23 year. Mover and seconder, please. Moved Rick, seconded Marty, thank you. So where did the 0.1 come from?
It was
The percentage increase.
So,
cutting costs. And a little bit from the buses.
So yeah, this is the, thank you. That is the rates take increase. So that averages out all of the increases, including the whangarei bus rate averaged across the region. So that's the increase in what council takes, not in an increase in any individual rate.
oh, I see. All right, any further comments on that one?
Or just, it's got to be funded from somewhere.
Yep.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Right.
Against? Carried. Should we take 7 and 8 together? Yeah, I think we can. That's for Bruce to have the delegated authority to approve consequential amendments, and that council notes that the amounts set out are best estimate forecasts. Move and seconders for 7 and 8. How do you move? Thank you, Josh. Seconded Justin. Sorry, Jack, what was that comment? Can't see that, right? You have a question? Did you have a question, Jack?
No. I was just apologising for the fact that I had to duck out for 30 seconds when I'm back.
Oh, okay, all good. Thank you. Any comments on 7 and 8? No. All those in favour?
Right.
Against? Carried. All right. Thank you again. Oh no, there's number 9. Crikey. Okay. That council does not make any changes to the annual plan 22-23 as a result of the submissions received on these topics: genetically modified organism or engineering, marine biosecurity theme. Move and second it, please. Yep, happy to move. Thanks, Josh. Seconded Justin. Any conversation?
Just if there hasn't been any erosion of those topics, is there a change to totally ignoring them and happy to?
It's no change.
Yep.
Yeah, correct, Marty.
Just point out, Marty, that we do have the Kerikeri Cruising Club have made a late bid for speaking point at tomorrow's B&B meeting, so we'll have a wee chat about that tomorrow. But I mean, it won't change the annual plan; it just might change some people's attitude towards it. That's all. Thank you.
Cheers, Jack.
Okay, thanks, Jack. All those in favour of recommendation 9?
Right.
Against? Carried. All right. We'll move on to 5.2.
Page 47.
Thank you.
Council deliberations on the user fees and charges 22-23, and we have 5 recommendations there. I think we could take them all as one. Move and seconder, please. Thank you, Rick. Seconded Justin. Any comments? No. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Perfect. And that brings us to the close of our deliberations. So I will close this meeting at 1:26 p.m. Thank you everyone for attendance. Kia ora.